I've made a terrible mistake." The words stuck in Natalie's throat as her world spun out of control. For the last 20 minutes, she had been openly criticizing company policies to the man sitting across from her, believing he was just another employee. But when he rose from his chair and walked toward the stage, reality crashed down on her. The crowd erupted into applause. Natalie's stomach dropped into a pit of horror. This wasn't a casual colleague. This was Elliot Harrington, the CEO of the entire corporation. Her candid opinions, her sharp critiques of marketing strategies, hadn't been whispered in private. They had been delivered straight to the most powerful man in the company. The microphone crackled as Elliot adjusted it. His eyes scanned the crowd until, for one unbearable moment, they locked with hers. Natalie froze. Breath caught in her chest. What happened next would either destroy her career or change it forever. Natalie Winters was not the type of person who drew attention. At 26, with chestnut hair and hazel eyes, she was pleasant to look at, but she had mastered the art of being invisible at Green Horizons, Seattle's fastest-growing health food company. She never sat in the front. She rarely spoke unless addressed directly. And when meetings ended, she slipped out before the inevitable small talk could trap her. It wasn't incompetence, far from it. Natalie was one of the most detail-oriented marketing analysts at the firm. Her reports were flawless, her presentations meticulous, but she delivered them with her gaze fixed on her notes, avoiding the spotlight at all costs. Her supervisor, Marcus, often encouraged her to step forward. "You can't build a career hiding in the shadows, Natalie," he'd say. Kindly. "Your ideas deserve to be heard." But spotlights made Natalie's skin crawl. She had learned long ago that attention often brought criticism, and criticism felt like fire against her skin. To survive, she had built walls, polite, distant, unremarkable. For 4 years, that strategy had worked. She had earned steady raises, decent reviews, and exactly 0 promotions. Her apartment reflected her personality, tasteful but impersonal, as though she were only visiting her own life rather than living it. That night, though, everything shifted, with one mistake. Natalie had stepped out of the shadows and into a spotlight she could no longer escape. The only exception to Natalie's carefully controlled, impersonal life was her balcony garden. A small patch of green where herbs, flowers, and miniature vegetables thrived beneath her dedicated care. Unlike people, plants asked for nothing but light and water, and in return, they grew without judgment. On a rainy Tuesday morning in October, Natalie arrived at her desk to find an elegant cream-colored envelope embossed with the Green Horizons emerald logo. Her pulse quickened. With hesitant fingers, she opened it. Inside lay an invitation to the company's annual gala. 3 hours of forced socializing, formal clothes, endless small talk. Normally, Natalie had perfected the art of escape, citing migraines, family emergencies, or prior commitments. But this time was different. Stamped across the top in bold green letters was a single word. Mandatory. Her supervisor, Marcus, confirmed it when she approached him, her voice tentative. "You can't skip this one, Natalie." The executive team specifically requested full attendance. "They're announcing something big." He paused, softening when he caught her anxious expression. "Look, just show up, stay for the announcement, shake a few hands, then you can leave. But you need to be there. It's time people upstairs know who you are." That, of course, was exactly what Natalie feared. The next 10 days blurred into waves of quiet dread. She agonized over what to wear, eventually choosing a modest emerald green dress, professional, understated, enough to blend in without looking careless. She researched conversation starters, practiced safe remarks about sustainability initiatives, and even rehearsed her own introduction in front of the mirror, fighting to erase the nervous uptilt that always made her sound like she was apologizing for existing. When the night of the gala arrived, Seattle betrayed her. The usual curtain of grey clouds had lifted, leaving behind a flawless, clear sky, as if even the weather refused to give her cover. The Grand Ellison Hotel towered before her, glittering in the evening light. Music and laughter spilled out of its golden doors, warm and intimidating all at once. Natalie checked her watch. 7:30 p.m. The invitation had said 7 sharp. She had, of course, arrived late on purpose, hoping to slip past the awkward mingling at the start. Taking a deep breath, she smoothed the fabric of her dress, touched the small pendant at her throat for reassurance, and forced her legs to carry. Her forward, the night, and her future had already begun. Inside the hotel ballroom, elegance reigned. Crystal chandeliers spilled warm light across cream-draped tables, trimmed in emerald accents, the company's signature color woven into every detail. A string quartet played softly in the corner, their notes threading through the steady hum of conversation. Waiters glided through the room with trays of champagne, each flute shimmering like liquid gold. Natalie took one, then another. Anything to occupy her hands, anything to disguise the nerves fluttering beneath her carefully composed exterior. Most tables were already filled. Colleagues clustered in familiar circles, their conversations effortless. Natalie scanned the room for a friendly face, but found none. The swell of panic pressed against her ribs, and then she saw it. Near the floor-to-ceiling windows, set apart from the bustle, was a nearly empty table. Only one man sat there, his gaze fixed on the glittering Seattle skyline beyond the glass. His suit was tailored to perfection, yet his stillness carried a quiet detachment, as though the gala were happening in another world entirely. Relief washed through her. One stranger was infinitely safer than a dozen half-acquaintances. Clutching her small purse like a talisman, Natalie approached. "Excuse me," she said softly, "is this seat taken?" The man turned, and for the first time she saw his face. Handsome, but not in the polished, predictable way of corporate profiles. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, framed by lines that hinted he smiled often. Silver threaded through his hair at the temples, lending him an air of gravitas. "No, not at all," he replied, rising slightly in a gesture of old-fashioned courtesy. "Please, join me." Natalie slid into the chair opposite him, and to her surprise, the tension in his shoulders eased, as if he too had been hoping for quiet company rather than hollow mingling. The din of the ballroom seemed to soften around their secluded table, creating a rare pocket of calm in the middle of the performance. "Not a fan of these events, either?" he asked, his voice warm, tinged with humor. Natalie hesitated. Years of corporate caution warred with the strange comfort his presence stirred. The words slipped out before she could catch them. "Is it that obvious?" Instead of the polite, manufactured laugh she expected, he gave a genuine chuckle. "Let's just say you walked in wearing the same expression I usually do at these things, like you're calculating the exact minimum time required before you can escape." Something about his candor, and perhaps the 2 glasses of champagne, loosened the knot of anxiety inside her chest. For the first time all evening, she felt herself exhale. "My escape plan involves a fake phone call at 9:30. Natalie confessed with a small, conspiratorial smile. Terrible news that absolutely requires my immediate attention. Impressive commitment, the man replied, his eyes glinting with amusement. I usually just slip out through the service entrance. The kitchen staff are far less judgmental than the networking crowd. His easy humor disarmed her. There was nothing pretentious about him, none of the corporate stiffness she dreaded. He didn't seem interested in discussing quarterly projections or the latest organizational restructuring, the usual mind-numbing topics that filled these events. I'm Elliot, by the way, he said at last, extending a hand. Natalie. Winters, she accepted, noting the balance of his handshake, firm without being domineering. Marketing department, right? He asked casually. She blinked, surprised. How did you know? In 4 years at Green Horizons, she'd been overlooked so thoroughly that even people on her own floor often forgot her name. I make it my business to know who's who, Elliot said with a faint shrug, then smoothly shifted the conversation. How long have you been with Green Horizons? It'll be 4 years next month. And how has that experience been for you? His tone carried genuine curiosity, not the perfunctory politeness she expected. Perhaps it was the third glass of champagne that had mysteriously appeared in her hand courtesy of a passing waiter. Or perhaps it was the quiet steadiness in Elliot's gaze. Whatever the reason, Natalie found herself answering with unusual honesty. Professionally or existentially, she asked, the corner of her mouth twitching. Both, he said, his brows lifting with interest. She traced the rim of her glass. Thoughtfully, professionally, adequate. The work is precise, predictable. I create reports that disappear into the corporate void. I attend meetings where everyone agrees with whoever spoke first. She caught herself, alarm bells ringing in her mind. Dangerous territory, distantly. He prompted gently. Natalie hesitated, then took another sip, letting liquid courage push the words out. Existentially, I wonder if I'm making any difference at all. We sell organic food products that should feel meaningful, but most of our marketing strategies involve manufactured authenticity, pretty pictures of farms we don't actually source from testimonials from real people who are actually paid actors. The moment the words slipped free, her pulse spiked. Her instincts screamed. She had just openly criticized company practices to a stranger. I shouldn't have said that, Natalie blurted, her cheeks warming, instead of looking scandalized. Elliot leaned forward, his eyes sparking with interest. No, he said firmly. You absolutely should have. Authenticity is rare in this industry, in any industry. Most people come to these events with every word rehearsed, calculated to advance their own agenda. Hearing someone actually speak their mind, that's refreshing. His validation eased the knot of panic in her chest. What about you? She ventured cautiously. How long have you been with the company? Since the beginning, he replied with a cryptic smile, before smoothly steering the conversation away. But enough about corporate hierarchies. Tell me, if you could change one thing about how Green Horizons operates, what would it be? The question caught her off guard. It was nothing like the safe, superficial prompts she'd prepared. For the evening, and before her usual filters could stop her, the answer spilled out. She spoke with growing passion about how the company could embrace true transparency instead of merely advertising it, how they could spotlight real customers instead of staged testimonials, how Green Horizons could use its vast resources to genuinely educate consumers about sustainable food choices, without resorting to fear tactics or polished half-truths. The frustrating thing, Natalie said, her voice tightening with conviction, is that we wouldn't even need to lie. Our products actually are ethically sourced. Our supply chain is more sustainable than our competitors. But instead of trusting the truth, we fall back on the same manipulative marketing playbook as everyone else. It's like we don't believe authenticity is enough. Elliot didn't interrupt. He didn't check his phone. He didn't glance around the room for more important people. He simply listened, really listened, with a kind of focus Natalie rarely experienced in the polished, performative world of corporate networking. When she finally stopped, breathless from her own unexpected candor, he nodded slowly. "You know," he said, "most executives surround themselves with people who only tell them what they want to hear. They live in a bubble of affirmation until reality bursts it, usually catastrophically." Natalie was still processing his words when the ballroom's lighting shifted. The chatter dimmed. A spotlight snapped onto the stage at the front, and the company's emerald logo appeared on towering screens. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC's amplified voice rang out. "Please welcome to the stage, please welcome to the stage, the visionary behind Green Horizons Extraordinary Growth Hour founder and CEO, Elliot Harrington." The words crashed over Natalie like a tidal wave, her dinner companion. The man she'd just spent 20 minutes casually dismantling company policies to rose smoothly from his chair. He cast her a small, almost apologetic smile. "Duty calls," he murmured. "Thank you for the most honest conversation I've had in months." And then he walked away, straight toward the stage. As the ballroom erupted in thunderous applause, Natalie sat frozen, her pulse hammering in her throat. She hadn't been talking to some mid-level colleague or anonymous executive. She had been freely, recklessly, criticizing marketing strategies to the founder and CEO of the entire corporation. The man who could end her career with a single email through the ringing in her ears. She barely registered his speech. Something about European expansion, a new product line. The audience cheered, but her mind was spiraling through bleak alternatives. Barista, Uber driver, maybe moving back into her parents' house in Michigan. As Elliot wrapped up to a standing ovation, Natalie seized the chaos of clapping hands and scraping chairs. She slipped out of the ballroom like a ghost, her emerald dress vanishing into the night. No goodbyes, no explanations, just the sinking conviction that her career at Green Horizons had ended before it had ever truly begun. The next morning, Monday, dawned with cruel indifference. Her alarm blared at 6 a.m., mocking her with its cheerful assumption that she still had a job. For the first time in 4 years, Natalie considered calling in sick, but postponing humiliation wouldn't erase it. Green Horizons headquarters had never looked so imposing. Glass and steel gleamed against the grey Seattle sky like a monument to her impending doom. Inside, she moved carefully, eyes down, convinced that every colleague could somehow smell her disgrace from across the open office. But then her key beeped green. Her desk sat exactly as she'd left it. No security guards appeared to escort her away. Just the familiar Monday rhythm, keyboards clacking, phones ringing, co-workers sipping lattes with sleepy indifference. Natalie sank into her chair, baffled. Maybe Elliot Harrington had already forgotten her entirely. Maybe their conversation had been nothing more than background noise to him. Or maybe, terrifyingly, he remembered every word. She forced herself to focus on her inbox, telling herself she still had work left, at least until someone officially ended her career. but her heart lurched when a calendar notification popped up on her screen. 10:30 A.M. Strategic Marketing Initiative, Executive Conference Room, E. Harrington. CEO. Natalie's fingers went cold. A one-on-one meeting with the CEO, less than 24 hours after she'd openly trashed the company's entire marketing philosophy. Her stomach twisted. Of course. He wanted to fire her in person. By 10:25, she was making her way to the executive floor with the solemn dignity of someone walking toward the gallows. Well. Natalie Winters on the executive floor. The voice dripped with mockery. Natalie turned to see Melleen Carter, the company's marketing director, striding toward her, each click of her designer heels sharp against the marble. At 38, Melleen was everything Natalie wasn't. Bold, politically sharp, endlessly ambitious. She was known for taking credit when things went right and assigning blame when they didn't. Mr. Harrington requested a meeting, Natalie said. Carefully, something flickered in Melleen's perfectly lined eyes. Annoyance, surprise. Did he now? Her smile was sugar-coated steel. Funny, I wasn't aware you and Elliot were acquainted. Before Natalie could reply, the receptionist cut in. Miss Winters, Mr. Harrington will see you now. Melleen's smile widened, but her eyes stayed cold. Best of luck, Natalie. Elliot can be demanding. Her casual use of his first name was a dagger meant to remind Natalie of the hierarchy she barely belonged to. Natalie stepped into the CEO's office expecting glass, steel, and intimidation. Instead, she found shelves of worn paperbacks, framed photos of community projects, even a small herb garden on the windowsill. It felt strangely human. Mr. Harrington, about last night, she began nervously. I want to apologize for he raised a hand, stopping her. First, call me Elliot. Second, you have nothing to apologize for. Natalie blinked. Your comments were the most honest feedback I've had in years, Elliot continued, leaning forward. Everyone else tells me what they think I want to hear, but you told me what I needed to hear. He slid a folder across the desk. Bold letters stamped across the cover read, Authentic Horizons Initiative. I'm launching a new campaign to realign our marketing with our real values, Elliot said, and I want you to lead it. Natalie stared at him. Lead it. Her mind reeled. She'd walked in preparing to be fired. Instead, she was being handed the opportunity of a lifetime. Natalie hesitated. But I'm just an analyst. Surely, someone with more expertise me line. Perhaps experience in perpetuating the problem isn't what we need, Elliot interrupted gently. We need clarity. Someone who sees the gap between what we claim to be and what we should be. That's you, she swallowed hard. I'll need to think about it. Instead of disappointment, Elliot smiled. Good. Don't answer from fear. Decide if it aligns with your values. As Natalie left his office, still reeling, she nearly collided with Melleen who, judging by her perfectly poised stance, had been waiting. Well, Melleen said casually, though her eyes glinted. Still employed, I see. Actually, Natalie replied, surprising herself with her own steadiness. I've been offered a project leadership role. A flicker cracked Melleen's flawless composure. What project? The Authentic Horizons Initiative. That's impossible, Melleen snapped, before regaining her sugary tone. I've been developing that proposal for months. Apparently, Mr. Harrington had other ideas. The words came out more confidently than Natalie felt, but she didn't back down. Melleen's smile thinned to a blade. Corporate favor is fleeting, Natalie. Today's golden child is tomorrow's cautionary tales. especially for those who mistake proximity for permanence. The weeks that followed were war by 1,000 cuts. Conference rooms Natalie booked would mysteriously be double booked. Key emails vanished from shared folders. Team members were suddenly reassigned before critical development sessions. And the whispers. Always the whispers. She only got the project because she charmed Harrington. Is it true you researched which table he'd be sitting at during the gala? I heard they were seen leaving together. Each insinuation burned, but Elliot's steady support gave Natalie something she'd never had in her career: belief. And despite the sabotage, the Authentic Horizons initiative flourished. Campaign concepts showcasing real employees, authentic farms, and genuine customer stories tested higher than anything the company had ever produced. Then came the final test, presentation day, before the executive team and full board. Natalie had prepared every detail, every slide, every answer to possible objections. This was more than a campaign pitch, was her chance to finally step into the light. She had spent her whole career avoiding, for the first time. Natalie Winters wasn't going to hide. She was midway through her presentation, voice steady, slides glowing behind her, when Malene rose smoothly from her chair. "Before we proceed further," she said, lifting one manicured hand with the solemn air of a martyr, "I feel obligated to bring something concerning to everyone's attention." Her tone dripped with regret, but her eyes glittered with triumph. "It pains me to do this," she continued, pausing just long enough for the silence to thicken, "but ethical integrity must come before personal relationships." A tap of her tablet, and suddenly Natalie's voice filled the room. I recognized him immediately. The CEO. I figured if I played innocent and said the right things, he'd notice me. It worked perfectly. The words hung in the air like poison. A horrified silence followed. Chairs creaked as board members shifted, exchanging looks of betrayal. Natalie's pulse thundered in her ears. All eyes turned to her, frozen at the podium. Then to Elliot, whose expression had gone unreadable. Carved from stone, Ms. Winters. His voice was formal, cold. "My office. Now." Everyone else reconvened in 30 minutes. Natalie forced herself to move. The walk from the conference room to Elliot's office stretched into an eternity. Every step was weighted with humiliation. Every breath scraped against the panic rising in her chest. 3 months of relentless work destroyed by a few seconds of twisted audio. The last thing she saw before the door shut was Malene's smile, sharp, triumphant, in his office. Elliot stood by the wide windows, Seattle's skyline gleaming behind him. He didn't speak, not immediately. His reflection in the glass was unreadable anger, disappointment, calculation. Natalie broke first. "I never said those things," she insisted, her voice steadier than she felt. "Not like that. Not in that order. Not with that meaning." "No," Elliot said. The 2 words hit her harder than any accusation. "You believe me." Now he turned, his face serious, searching hers. "The woman who spoke honestly to me at that gala. The woman who hesitated before accepting responsibility because she wanted to be sure it was right. The woman who's endured sabotage for weeks, without once lashing out. That woman isn't a manipulator." The audio was clearly edited. Relief surged so suddenly through Natalie that she had to grip the back of a chair to steady herself. "But how do we prove it?" she whispered. "It's my word against hers. And she has connections I'll never match." A small, determined smile touched Elliot's mouth. "This building has security protocols most employees don't know about," he said. Every meeting room, every hallway, every conversation is recorded. For security purposes. Natalie blinked. I mean, Elliot said, his voice turning flint-hard, that somewhere on our servers is the original audio of that meeting, and once we pull it, Millionaire Carter's little empire of deceit will collapse in front of the very people she tried to impress. The boardroom was silent, except for the faint hum of the speakers. Henry Chen's calm, precise narration cut through the tension. As you can hear, each phrase Ms. Winters allegedly said was lifted from unrelated conversations. The manipulated audio presented yesterday was a fabrication. Furthermore, he turned the laptop toward the board. Our system logs confirm Ms. Carter accessed restricted audio archives and audio editing software late at night without authorization. Gasps rippled around the table. One executive muttered, "Unbelievable." Another leaned back, shaking his head in disgust. Natalie sat frozen, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Yesterday, these same faces had judged her guilty in silence. Today, their eyes turned on Millionaire with open hostility. Elliot stepped forward, his voice steady, deliberate. Yesterday, Ms. Winters was humiliated in front of this board. Her reputation was nearly destroyed because of a calculated act of sabotage. Today, you've heard the truth. The integrity Ms. Winters has shown throughout. This ordeal is exactly why she is the right person to lead the Authentic Horizons initiative. He let the words hang for a moment, then his gaze cut to Millionaire. As for you deny any of this. For the first time, Millionaire's confidence faltered. She stood, but her voice shook despite her attempt at poise. I was only trying to protect the company from poor leadership decisions. Sometimes difficult measures are necessary enough. Elliot's voice cracked like a whip. Protecting the company does not mean fabricating lies, undermining colleagues, and weaponizing deception. That is the opposite of integrity. Effective immediately, your access is revoked. Security will escort you from the building. Millionaires' perfectly composed mask shattered. Her eyes darted from Elliot to the board, searching desperately for an ally. She found none. The silence was damning. Henry gave a subtle nod to two waiting security officers. They stepped forward, and Mellon's heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as she was led out, her exit as cold as her ambition. Only after the door closed did Natalie finally breathe. She felt dozens of eyes on her, but for the first time, they weren't filled with judgment or dismissal. They were filled with respect. Elliot turned back to her. His expression softened just slightly, though his tone remained formal for the board. Ms. Winters, please continue your presentation. Natalie rose, steadier than she expected. The knot of fear that had lived in her chest for years loosened with every step toward the podium. For the first time in her career, she didn't shrink from the spotlight. She met the eyes of the room, full of executives, and spoke with clarity, with conviction, with authenticity. And this time everyone listened. Henry continued, his tone precise. The metadata confirms the audio was created and altered on Ms. Carter's device. A stunned silence filled the boardroom. Thank you, Henry, Elliot said, his voice steady but edged with steel. What we witnessed yesterday was not ambition, it was sabotage, a violation of both trust and our company's values. He turned, his gaze locking on Millionaire. Ms. Carter, please report to HR immediately. Your access is suspended, pending investigation. Shoulders tight with humiliation, Millionaire gathered her things. Not a single person met her eyes. The click of her heels echoed like a final judgment until the door closed behind her. Elliot's expression softened as he looked back at Natalie. On behalf of Green Horizons, he said with genuine remorse, "You have our deepest apology. The floor is yours again if you're ready." Natalie rose, and as she walked toward the podium, she realized something had shifted inside her. The fear of visibility that had once defined her wasn't gone, but it was no longer in control. What replaced it wasn't arrogance, but quiet certainty. "Before I continue," she began, her voice carrying across the room with calm conviction, "I want to address something important. What happened yesterday wasn't just about one person's choices. It revealed something deeper about our culture. Too often, appearances are valued more than substance. Those who speak the loudest are rewarded, while those who contribute most meaningfully remain unseen." She let the words settle, then continued, "The Authentic Horizons initiative isn't only about how we present ourselves to customers. It's about who we truly are as a company. And it starts with how we treat each other." This time, as she spoke, the executives leaned forward with genuine engagement. Her team members, once hesitant now, watched her with open pride. And Elliot, seated at the head of the table, regarded her with professional admiration, touched by something warmer. By the end of her presentation, the board voted unanimously to approve the initiative with an expanded budget. Colleagues who had once avoided her now approached with handshakes, congratulations, and even gratitude. Through public humiliation and vindication, Natalie discovered a freedom she never expected, the strength of being fully seen when what was seen was true. As the room emptied, Elliot approached quietly. "You could have skipped addressing the elephant in the room," he said, his eyes steady, "but you didn't." "Yes," Natalie replied with quiet certainty, "because if I had, nothing would really change." He studied her for a long moment, then smiled, not as the CEO, but as a man. "Dinner tomorrow, to celebrate properly. No name tags, no politics. Just two people who appreciate honesty in a world that rarely rewards it." For the first time in her career, Natalie didn't overthink. She didn't search for the safest response. She simply told the truth. "I'd like that very much." 3 months later, Green Horizons unveiled its Authentically Us campaign to industry acclaim and unprecedented consumer response. Sales rose 23% in the first quarter, and the company's authenticity scorer, metric of consumer trust, the highest level in its history. What began as one honest conversation at a gala became a company-wide shift toward transparency and genuine communication. For Natalie, the change was just as profound. The woman who once mapped escape routes around small talk now lead cross-departmental meetings with quiet confidence. Promoted to Director of Authentic Marketing, she swapped her cubicle for a sunlit office with wide windows, not the tucked-away corner she once would have chosen for its seclusion. Most importantly, she learned that visibility doesn't have to mean vulnerability. Being truly seen by people who value your work is far less frightening than hiding in plain sight. The culture began to follow suit, inching away from rewarding the loudest voices toward recognizing thoughtful, authentic contribution. On a clear Seattle evening, with the sunset washing Elliott Bay in watercolor pinks and golds, Natalie shared a table with Elliot, this time in a small waterfront restaurant, not a crowded ballroom. Their professional partnership had become something more personal, built on mutual respect and the rare experience of seeing each other's character under pressure. "I've been thinking about something you said that first night," Elliot remarked as they finished dinner, "about feeling invisible at your own company. Do you still feel that way?" Natalie considered. No, but not because I'm more visible on paper. It's because I stopped hiding. There's a difference between being unseen and hiding yourself. Elliot nodded. Most people perform versions of themselves they think others want. Few choose to simply be. Speaking of courage, Natalie added with a small smile, I hear Melon's doing well in the Alaska office. She is. He said, sometimes people need a place where their reputation doesn't precede them. She's launched some impressive community outreach there. They walked the waterfront in companionable silence, city lights stippling the water. Natalie realized her greatest achievement wasn't the campaign or the promotion. It was discovering that her strongest asset wasn't the ability to blend in, but the capacity for honest connection in a world starved for it. Sometimes the quietest voices carry the most important messages if they're given the chance to be heard. The end of this story of workplace drama and personal growth resonated with you. Please like, share, and subscribe for more narratives that explore the complexities of modern life. Your support helps us bring meaningful stories to life. Thank you for listening.